Welcome to the Two Blokes Chatting radio show on 94.7 The Pulse. Music, interviews, news and, well, Two Blokes Chatting. Now, here are the two blokes.
Rob, we have our final guest for the day online. You might do the honours, please.
We do indeed. Very, very strange times, and I think we've got worse to come, because I think it's almost certain now at some stage in the next week or so we'll have an official lockdown from either the state government or the federal government, hopefully both of them at the same time in a nice, sweet, team-oriented conversation. But that means you're all going to be locked in the house, and there's a person who's very good at getting us through tricky situations. This one is tricky. She's living it at the moment. Steph Kakris, good morning to you.
Good morning. Good morning, Neil.
Good morning, Steph. How are you?
So, Steph, you've got your business. Your husband works in a business. He's now confined to home where he's happily doing what he does. You've got children who are school-aged children who are home, all wanting to be entertained at the one time. How's it working for you?
Well, we're used to working from home, so it's not a big shift for us. I'm an introvert anyway, so I don't feel our life is pretty much the same, except that I'd like to go to the beach today, but I'll probably just perhaps sunbake in the backyard instead. So we're all good, but I understand that it's, really trying times for a lot of people. And the thing is that we're used to being so busy, our lives are used to being so full, especially living in this amazing place of Melbourne and Geelong, and, there's always something on, there's always something we can be going to, and all of a sudden all those things have been taken away from us, and we're like, it's a big adjustment to stop and to slow right down. But in actual fact, I think that's going to be one of the gifts of this whole situation, is that it is going to teach people to slow down, to get back to the basics. And one thing that I'm not terribly good at entertaining my children, I need to confess. They do spend a lot of time on screens, probably more than they should. But what I did do with my daughter, who's 11, is we sat down the day before yesterday and we made a list of all the things that we could do while we're at home, either together or that she could do on her own, so that I'm not feeling like I have to constantly think of ways to amuse her or things that she can do, when she's not staring at a screen.
Steph, one of the interesting things that needs to happen first is that the conversation with young children about what the experience is at the moment and the seriousness of it. Are you finding that your children are self-educated on that, or have you had to have that conversation just to say the do's and don'ts and why?
Look, they have been asking some questions about it. Alex, the 11-year-old still doesn't really get that we, if we do go into the supermarket, not to touch anything or, and to keep the distance from one another. But I'm also important not to, I'm talking to her about what we need to do without catastrophizing it.
Yep.
So, and I think they did that really, really well at school, and most of the education that the kids got was at school, because they know that their school finished early. They knew that at school they needed to, they couldn't hug their teacher anymore, or stand, they were standing further away from each other and all that kind of stuff. So it's just a matter of gently reminding them that, we don't want to get sick and we don't want other people to get sick. So we're just being a bit extra careful without, really going into the fearful side of it. So that's how I've been approaching that.
And the other thing is, do you have, between you and your husband, do you have a clear and defined understanding yourself, or a slightly different view of things? Because I do know of circumstances where the children will get information from school, the mother will be trying to do something, and the father will have a totally flippant, uncaring almost view of it. And I mean this quite seriously. It does.
Yes.
It does happen. Are you all on the same page to start with?
I think so. We're lucky in that we're kind of homebodies anyway, so it's not a huge for our kids. But for people who go out and a lot and socialise a lot, and now all of a sudden they're home a lot, then that would be, you would need to explain to your kids a little bit more. Look, the difference with co-parenting is the kids actually adjust to it, with different parents with different parenting styles and different points of view. Kids actually adjust to it reasonably well, and as long as, I think if there's often one parent that can explain, like if they said, well, if the child has the confidence to ask the parents, well, how come you let me do this, but, mum lets me do this, but dad won't let me do that, and vice versa, then to just be able to explain to the children, well, dad, he doesn't believe that that's a good thing for you, whereas I don't mind. I don't think that's too bad, but we have different alternative points of view, and so you're just going to have to be flexible with that.
Because I think, the other thing that sits in my mind, Steph, is obviously your profession is to work with people who are doing it tough at the moment. And I was talking to someone yesterday who is reasonably prominent. Their job is to entertain. They feel the need to make people happy, upbeat at the moment, and yet that same person is going home to a household of children. It's that whole, the mechanic always drives the worst car and the landscape gardener's always got weeds in the garden. How do you keep yourself positised, is that a word? It is now, so that, when your client makes contact with you saying, hey, Steph, I'm doing this a bit tough, that you don't, snap their head off because you're tired, or how, that must be a real challenge as well when you're in that mode.
Yeah, so I don't work with people who have serious mental health issues, and the people who do, it's really important to have clear boundaries between and to have a little ritual between working with those people and then coming home and to and I have sometimes I have existing clients that obviously go through really tough times, and I'm not just going to kick them out because they're having a really bad time. But, if there's anyone listening who is having a really bad time at the moment, definitely please reach out. Beyond Blue are extending their facilities and, their staff that are on to help people, and Lifeline as well. Please don't hesitate to ring either of those numbers. The Beyond Blue website's got so many wonderful resources for people to reach. But it is also important to keep our vibration high, and one of the things is for people who are working in difficult situations is to actually have a little ritual. So even if you're in a supermarket and you're copping a lot of flack, or you're feeling really scared, or you're just in amongst fearful people all day, when you're coming home, to just stop at the front door and to just wave your hands, throughout your body and just cleanse all that energy from your work day, and take a deep breath and say, okay, I'm going to leave that at work, I'm going to come in at home, I'm going to watch a great movie on Netflix, or I'm going to hang out with my kids, and really try and delineate those boundaries is something that can be really valuable to do.
Steph, what's the favourite old board game you pulled out of the cupboard?
We played Cluedo last night. And
I love that one.
Because everyone seemed to be in the living room, and I said, are we all practicing social distancing in the living room? So all our little characters were all at every corner of the living room.
No, that is a great game. I wish I had a copy of it. I might even go and buy one. It was my all-time favourite game as a child, that one.
He just needs to find friends to play it with.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, Monopoly Empire we played the other night as well. The other thing too that's really important in families, if you all find yourself together, is that we normally have a mixture of introverts and extroverts in a family. Introverts need quiet time in order to regenerate themselves, and extroverts need to be with people in order to regenerate themselves. So it's really important that the introvert explains that, and the extrovert understands and allows the introvert to retreat and go and close themselves in the bedroom for a couple of hours each day so they can just rejuvenate. And it's really important that the extrovert reaches out to their friends and their community online using Zoom, using Skype, or whatever it is, to keep their energy up and to keep themselves going. But that each respects the other's different way of doing things.
Quite important in a confined space over what I think is going to be a long period of time. Thank you so much, Steph. If we are able to continue with this show, we might catch up with you in 3 or 4 weeks and see how it's all working for you in the Kakris household.
Because we've got some more tips from working from home and things that I can share. So be happy to come on again next week and talk about that.
Good on you, Steph. All the very best. Keep smiling.
Okay, you too.
Thanks, Steph. See ya.